Hi, it's Retro Nerd Girl, and I wanted to share this brand new movie that I just saw. And let me tell you right now, ooh, this is so good. Let me share the screen with you. Holy moly, the green slime. Okay, so many people have been telling me to see this movie. I mean, everywhere I go, like, have you seen the green slime? No? Oh my gosh, like, people are just like, "You've gotta see this green slime." And I'm like, "Okay. I'll get to it, I promise." And there've been many years when I've been trying to find this movie and I had trouble finding it. So, I was able to get it on Amazon, luckily for a decent price. It was like it was weird because it has been really hard to get a hold of, and I finally saw it. It was the price was decent, and I just snagged it. And so I was like, yes, finally. Now, it was a digital copy. I am trying to get my hands on a full physical copy of this because it is a must to have. This is one of those movies that if you love science fiction, you gotta have this. If you are a retro sci-fi lover, this is the movie to have. This is the one. This is the one. Oh my goodness. It's wonderful. Okay, wonderful. So let me get started. This isn't a Citizen Kane, right? This isn't a Colossus, the Forbin project. This is its own unique, schlocky, fun, but a solid movie, solid story structure. It's there, like it is a movie that has flaws. There's like actual physical flaws in it, in the actual visuals and everything. But the story is so good. It's so good. So let me get started with this. This is wonderful. I love this stuff because this almost feels like a couple of people who love science fiction got together and said, "We're gonna make some monsters, and we're gonna make some spaceships, and we're gonna make some miniatures." And we're like there was a sense of fun in this movie, even though it's dealing with a very serious subject matter and a threat level. It's not quite a horror movie, but horrible things happen. So it's really the tension it was all the way up there. We know that the costumes are guys in rubber suits, but it still was threatening. These monsters don't let up for a second. The threat level was all the way up there. So I applaud this movie for doing that. For doing that. They had good writing on their side. So, a little bit of information about the movie. The Green Slime, released in 1968, rating a G. The runtime is an hour and 30 minutes. The director is Kinji Fukasaku. The writers here are Ivan Rayner, Charles Sinclair, and Bill Finger. It stars Robert Horton, Luciana Paluzzi, and Richard Jackel. Okay, the synopsis for this is that after destroying a giant asteroid heading towards Earth, a group of scientists unknowingly bring back a strange green substance that soon mutates into a monster. So it starts off on the space station Gamma 3, calling Cape Kennedy for a space weather report. And there's like solar flares and things that are in the atmosphere, and everything seems to be cool. And you even have somebody says, "Hey, the cool thing about this job is that nothing exciting ever happens around here." Well, just as they say that, something exciting does happen. An asteroid is on a collision course with Earth, and the size of this asteroid would surely destroy the planet. So that is something that they have to handle immediately. Now, that's the opener, but then we get into this really interesting thing that happens. The music starts, and it's not creepy music with played with a theremin, right? We're talking about a fun, groovy music sound that's called the song is called Green Slime. The guy's like, Green Slime. Like, yes. It is so good. It's like a groovy 60s, 70s flavor, like song. I was just like, this is telling me the flavor and the theme and the spirit in which this film was made. It was supposed to be fun, and I was into it immediately. Now they have all these really cool miniatures, and I believe it's the camera that they're using. The miniatures really do look like miniatures, because I believe you're supposed to film miniatures a certain way in order for it to look like it is a larger scale. So that was a sort of like a red flag, like that this is a production that has less money than you would expect. And I absolutely not only respect it, love it, and applaud it. This was 1968. This is not a bad movie with special effects by no means. For the time period, was expected. This was expected for a um movie that was like taking place on an alien world. I mean, I love it. I love it. There or alien concepts, out of space, wonderful. I I love this so much. You just don't know. And so let me just explain a little bit about the green slime now. So we have the main character here who is Commander Jack Rankin, and he's actually like really close to retiring. But they've called him out of retirement or the possibility of retirement and said, hey, you've got to volunteer to go fix this problem with this asteroid. And he's not loving the idea, but he takes it on anyway because he has a supreme sense of duty. Now, on the ship, he comes face to face with Commander Vince Elliott, played by Richard Jacko. There is some former bad blood between them because the young lady in the story here, Luciana Paluzzi, plays Dr. Lisa Benson, and she is engaged to Vince Elliott, but at one point had a relationship with Jack Rankin. And so Commander Rankin is in the story very courageous, a very strong leader, a very strong commander, and he is the kind of take charge kind of guy. He makes no nonsense decisions about life and death. Doesn't mind sacrificing a few lives to save the many. He's that kind of a guy. And so there had been some incidences in the past in which Vincent Elliott had issues with that because he has a more emotional heart. He doesn't want to make those judgment calls, and so it causes a huge rift in their relationship. Not only that, the fact that they have bad blood prior because of this interesting romantic triangle. Lisa tries to pretend that she is not still in love with Rankin. It's evident that she is. She's still in love with him. It's really funny. They squeeze it in, that relationship thing in there, and then they're back on mission and really don't have time for this and move on. And I like that. I like the fact that it wasn't like, let's spend too much time on this. It was like, okay, we don't care about this right now. Let's get to the main thing, which is getting that asteroid out of the trajectory of Earth. And their plan is to go on the asteroid, plant some bombs on there, and then hightail it out of there. And they are putting together their team. And on the asteroid, which is quite interesting, there are these little slimy amoeba creatures that are kind of causing trouble for the men as they are trying to place these bombs. Look at the visuals here. This looks really good. I mean, isn't it perfect? No, but it looks really good. They made a very good effort to portray this alien world. And I dig it so much. Like, using the play on colors and contrasts, very nicely done. Very nicely done. So we have a doctor, right? Because here's the thing. The doctor says, I am specifically would like to come on board, and I'll make sure to stay out of your way. And the first thing he does is he finds these creatures, and he's like, "Oh, I need to take a specimen, back with me back on the ship." And Commander Riken is like, "No, you can't." He destroys this petri dish with the sample, but somehow a little piece of the green stuff has gotten onto some of the clothing that one of the guys have. And so this splatter, this little tiny bit of green substance causes a lot of havoc. The amoeba or whatever it is starts to grow and gets bigger and bigger and bigger, becomes a full creature. But when they get back to the ship, they don't know any of this is happening. So they're enjoying a night of celebration. And Rankin is like, yeah, you need to leave him and just be with me. He's really aggressive. This couple is really trying their best to make it. They're trying to be there for each other. And here he is, like, trying to destroy their little relationship. So the first creature makes its debut, and it's really one of those things where you're like, what is this creature? What's going on? It looks really weird and wacky, but what is not wacky is the fact that they can't really kill these creatures. They can't. They just can't. So one of the things about the creatures is that it uses electricity, or sucks up electricity. It uses it as a power source to grow. If you cut the creature and it bleeds, well, its blood becomes a cell replicator and begins to create more of these creatures. So every time the humans fight back, they accidentally create more of these creatures, and it's just crazy because there's a lot of them now. It's really crazy. So they experience their first fight with them, and really they're really outnumbered by these creatures. They are outskilled by these creatures. They don't know what to do, and there've already been several casualties and lots of injuries due to this whole thing. And so it's becoming very, very difficult for them to even think about trying to survive this. This is really, really detrimental to them. The stakes keep on rising and rising and rising as more and more of these creatures grow. It becomes a challenge. It becomes a challenge. So they have this great idea to corner off the creatures into one section of the ship, and then just like blow the whole thing up, or just seal it off. But even with the sealing it off does not stop them from bursting through. These creatures are quite powerful, so they're getting through the walls and the doors and breaking them. And then we have people making silly decisions here and there because there's somebody on the other side of the door and they want to save that person. But guess what? As soon as they open the door, it's already too late, and they've compromised everyone. This is the kind of stuff that keeps happening. Really love the tension building and how they kept raising the stakes, raising the trouble, the ethical problems of, like, there are people in the next room, they're screaming. Can we help them? Have a heart, help them. Open up the doors, and you have just sealed your own doom. It's really intense. It's really intense. And I love that, especially because it was written that way. It was written for the intensity. They're basically looking after sources. They at one point had people with flashlights that were dangling in front of them. It was enough to disorient them and get them to follow that power source. They are after power sources. There just so happens to be a solar panel on the top of this ship, and boy, that creates like a whole nother level of craziness as they're out in space. The guy who was responsible for really picking up the amoeba and trying to bring it back to the the station, he unfortunately meets an end. And you don't feel sorry for him. You're like, yep. And the main reason why he dies is because he goes back for some important papers that were, part of his study. And I'm thinking to myself, what is the use and the good of that information if you're not alive anymore, if you compromise your own health? So that was quite interesting, and another like sad, almost like satisfying moment for the story, and also sad moment for the story, because nobody wants to see another person die, but in this case, this guy, he kept on making dumb mistakes, as a medical individual, not really familiar with everything, knowing the dangers of nature. He just went on ahead and ignored all that for the glory of finding a new species. And boy, did he find that species, is all I'm saying. Is all I'm saying. And so here's a gaggle of them here just doing their thing. And it is, um, you know, it is funny if you just look at like, oh, there's a whole bunch of them. But when you get into the story and you realize what they can do, it's like, ooh, there's a whole bunch of them. What are you going to do now? It changes the scope by the writing of the story and how they were really set up to continuously ratchet up the tension, ratchet up the stakes more and more. These guys cannot be killed. Then it's really about survival, like who is going to be able to survive this thing. They do have some ships on board in which they can have some people escape, and they do manage to do that. But it's really, like I said, they don't look very intimidating on with just a snapshot without context of exactly what these creatures can do. And I do believe they created that fear in the story as you're watching it. Now, things really get interesting as the fight goes to outer space. The creatures are out of space, and they're all over that Gamma 3 space station. It is really scary how many of them are on there. And, like, let's be real, the visuals are not incredibly the best visuals. I gave it some brownie points for that, like, okay, right. This doesn't look 100% for perfect, or believable, but I get where you're going with it. This is a full scale invasion, and these guys multiplied a lot. Perhaps they could end up being on planet Earth at some point, and that would be terrible. That would be terrible. We've got, a full scale battle in outer space with floating astronaut guys with laser beams and creatures. I love that. It was like, whoa, this is really cool. I can't think of another movie that did that around this time. So this is wonderful. This is like the original Star Wars. I mean, really, I was so impressed by this, and I was like, this is exactly what I had always had in my mind for battles in outer space, right? That you could get in your astronaut suit, you could use laser guns and shoot at monsters that were trying to attack. And hopefully you'd win. Now, the last resort is blowing up the ship, and Commander Rankin has volunteered to do it. He's like, it's got to be me. I'll go in there, take care of this. You guys all get off the ship and save yourselves. At this point, he's basically by himself. But upon hearing this, Commander Vince Elliott decides that he's going to go in there and help him out. And throughout the entire story, they have been fighting cats and dogs for power over authority and the ethics of making difficult choices as a commander. Rankin doesn't believe that Elliot can rule or has the stomach to be a leader. And it's all come down to this one moment where we have Vincent Elliott go in there and be a hero. Now, unfortunately, Elliot dies. It is heartbreaking because, you know, he's not gonna be with his fiancée. There is definitely love between them. I think he loves her more than she loves him is what I'm saying. But I think it was also to he was trying so hard throughout this entire storyline to use his heart to make the right decision. And so if he was going to make the right decision, maybe it was to leave Rankin exactly there. If Rankin was in his shoes, he would have left him there. But because he has a heart, because he has a heart, he goes to help in spite of their differences. That's the difference between the two men. And in fact, getting there helps Rankin to actually complete the mission, make sure that the ship burns up and is destroyed. You never know if you're making the right decision that is going to protect you and keep you safe and keep everybody safe, or if you're putting yourself in danger by doing something that you feel might be right. So I did adore that. I loved it, especially in the position of being a leader, and that also was like sort of hitting a chord for great leaders. What do they do? I suppose they do a little bit of both, right? They have to do things with their heart, but also with the concept of like maybe we do have to sacrifice for this thing. You know, maybe we do have to be okay with losing 3 people if we're going to save 100 people. It's really awful. And which 3 do you sacrifice? Like it's awful to think about those things. Food for thought. This is why I love this movie. This is why I love this movie. This is why it has my heart right now. This is why I'm an instant fan forever. Green Slime, amazing. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Okay. Just incredible. It's, you know, good guys win in the end. The monsters get blown up. Okay, so at the end, of course, they play the groovy song again. Green slime. I was like, yeah. Just jamming to it and everything. Yeah, that's pretty much it. My goodness. I can't tell you how much I really enjoyed this. And to everybody who is asking me to see this movie, thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing that, for hitting me up on this really incredibly groovy movie that really sparks a lot of thought. It surprised me. It surprised me at how well the story was written. It is a solid story. It is a solid story. With all the things you can say about the production, it was a solid story. It was really great. The score was used very minimally. You know, and maybe it sometimes was used in a way to ramp up some of the tension just a little. Like I didn't think that the score was amazing. It was decent. It was decent. I think a wonderful score would have just taken it to like another level though. Like a bigger, more epic score would have taken it to another level. Like the creature design itself was questionable. We know that it's people in there, but it still was fascinating to see these wild little monsters really take over this ship so quickly, so quickly. I remember hearing the doctor say, "The cell replication is astonishing." You know, he was just that doctor was just so fascinated by these creatures, and they ended up getting him in the end, playing too close to the fire, as you will. Just can't say enough good things about this. I had so much fun with this. All right, guys, without further ado, I will see you in my next video.